and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Brian and Drew and Oscar. We're going to be discussing the 57th verse of the Tao Te Ching and how it relates to our recovery. If you're new to the podcast, we approach Taoist teachings from a lens of our own recovery, how the Tao relates in our own walk, in our own experiences. A lot of us find that the simplicity of Taoist thought, not Taoist religion, but more Taoist philosophy, so much resonates with the higher power. It's been so useful that we study it regularly and get a lot out of it too. Any resources that you may need, go to buddyc.org. I have a daily devotional that I'm actually penning that you can get for free. And eventually I'll publish a devotional book from that. But I'm using that to keep me accountable. So you're going to see some mistakes. Those have not been to the editor. So every now and then I make a very embarrassing mistake, but it's good for me. So you guys can benefit from that if you so desire. Okay, the 57th verse. Why don't you lead us off, Drew, with Stephen Mitchell?
All right. If you want to be a great leader, you must learn to follow the Tao. Stop trying to control. Let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. The more prohibitions you have, the less virtuous people will be. The more weapons you have, the less secure people will be. The more subsidies you have, the less self-reliant people will be. Therefore, the Master says, I let go of the law, and people become honest. I let go of economics, and people become prosperous. I let go of religion, and people become serene. I let go of all desire for the common good, and the good becomes common as grass.
Thank you, Drew. Oscar, would you care to read Jonathan Starr?
Yes, I love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
To rule a state, have a known plan. To win a battle, have an unknown plan. To gain the universe, have no plan at all. Let the universe itself reveal to you its splendor. How do I know this should be so? Because of this. The more restrictions, the more poverty. The more weapons, the more fear in the land. The more cleverness, the more strange events. The more laws, the more lawbreakers. Thus, the sages say, act with a pure heart and the people will be transformed. Love your own life and the people will be uplifted. Give without conditions and the people will prosper. Want nothing and the people will find everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Brian, do you have Derek Lynn handy?
Let's see. Govern a country with upright integrity. Deploy the military with surprise tactics. Take the world with non-interference. How do I know this is so? With the following. When there are many restrictions in the world, the people become more impoverished. When people have many sharp weapons, the country becomes more chaotic. When people have many clever tricks, more strange things occur. The more laws are posted, the more robbers and thieves there are. Therefore, the sage says, I take unattached action and the people transform themselves. I prefer quiet and the people right themselves. I do not interfere and the people enrich themselves. I have no desires and the people simplify themselves.
Thank you, Brian.
Welcome.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read my interpretation. It's by no means a translation. Verse 57, it was titled The Way of Peace. Let love govern your decisions. Let paradoxical truth make your choices for you. Become the observer in your everyday life. When you make fear-based decisions rather than love-based decisions, the result is always more fear. The more you focus on your defense, the more you are attacked. Is it possible to allow your day to evolve without excessive effort or control? How? By lessening desires and letting go of expectations of yourself and others. You then find the simple grooves of life that lead you in the way of peace. What I was talking about with the grooves of life are long ago when you had wagons on the dirt roads, there were grooves in the road from the wagons, so many wagons. So what you did, instead of fighting those grooves and trying to move out of them, you found them and then kind of let the reins go and just let it go in the grooves without your excessive control. That's such an incredible example of letting go. You're still there. Your job is just not to interfere as much, right? Not to fight. That's good. As usual, let's use the Stephen Mitchell as an outline, comment from any others that we have. And also, too, I want us to think about more than as a leader of a country, because I don't think that's any of our experiences. How about governing ourselves? Let's look at it as if, and we can apply this to governing ourselves. We are the country, in other words. If you want to be a great leader, you must learn to follow the Tao. Stop trying to control. Let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. So, personally, if I want to be great, so to speak, I learn to follow love, right? I learn to follow compassion. Brian?
Buddy, to me, first thing I was thinking is about the word control. And it's like every addict I know loves control, and especially me. And, and another thing I was thinking about is that book, Trying Not to Try, that you turned me on to, and the practice of Wu Wei, and just that fine line between controlling and versus not giving a damn, and just showing up and being and letting things take their course. That's what comes to mind for me.
While you were talking, I thought about something, Brian. I hadn't thought about this before. Not giving a damn is a form of control.
Haven't you mentioned it? Yeah.
It is. I'd never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That's fear's answer to control.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give a damn.
That'll fix it.
That'll fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is effort to not control from a place of compassion, where we're learning to move from a place of love instead of fear, that we're not acting out of resentment, because not giving a damn is acting out of resentment for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's still control the opposite way. It's the flip side.
Yeah.
It's the other side of the coin, really.
It is.
So we can, the point is to let go of care, I think, rather than not caring, placing our care somewhere else rather than on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
It's still caring, but it's like the third step says. I'm going to read it to make sure I get it verbatim. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God. The point is to turn it over. And of course, we learn that that's just a decision, and the rest of the steps help us to do that, show us how. especially the tools we learn in 6 and 7.
Yeah, we just made a decision.
Yeah, it was
We just said this ain't working.
right. And my giving a damn and not giving a damn neither work.
Yeah, I just can't deal with it, period.
That's right. Well, that's the whole point. And this whole verse, especially from Stephen Mitchell, talks about all about letting go. And what we think is letting go, or what we think is control that will work, is the opposite of what really works. Oscar?
Thank you. Yeah, that resonates also with me. For me, this verse is about and actually the whole Tao Te Ching is about letting go of ego. And that's what 12 steps is also about. Letting go of ego. And with this process of letting go of ego, we come closer to a higher power, or to living in harmony with Tao, where we don't have to control or to rule or to think or to judge we don't have to do it. We don't need our mind. And that's an incredible thing for an ego. I mean, an ego can't let go of his mind, right? This process is so peaceful. It's such a peaceful process. And when I read it here, and this morning I had a meeting, which was the same thing. It was the same thing. It was, okay, we are in an ego deflation program. And here is how we do it. We work the steps with the sponsor until we do the 12th step, and then we live in the steps. And by living in the steps, we work on this letting go of this ego. We keep working on it, but because with the most of us, it won't disappear overnight. It will stay, and it will come in disguises, and it will try and try and try. But here it says, maybe I go too fast, but the last stanza is about purity, love, unselfishness, and desirelessness. So those 4 things resonate for me exactly what the steps are about. And taking life on life terms. And what also resonates is maybe another thing, but it also has to do with the anonymity. So the anonymity for me in the fellowship is we come in without an ego. At least we try to let our ego out of the door, and then we come in, and then we have these meetings, and we try to live with each other, following the traditions. And this verse really reminded me of the traditions, which are so peaceful and loving and simple. Yeah, really beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you, Oscar. Everything about the ego for me originates from fear too. It's all back to fear. I'm trying to control because I'm afraid I'm not going to get something I want or lose something I have. And the ego's the same way. The ego has an agenda. The agenda is to get what I want or not lose what I have. Always, 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 always. Oscar?
Yeah, today I read a part of A Course in Miracles where it said, how can a murderer not be afraid of death? And that's what ego is, right? Ego is a murderer. If necessary, it will murder. And we have these thoughts which are really destructive. So it's a kind of metaphor. Murderers, okay, we're not going to kill immediately, but at least if I talk for myself, in my head, I kill a lot of people. So I really recognize this murdering ego. And how can a murderer not be afraid of death? And that also resonates here. And with what you just said. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. Brian?
I was reading this, buddy. I was reading this part, and I went to the website here with the different versions, and it says Stephen Mitchell, stop trying to control, let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. And man, that world governing itself, it really hits me because a couple of weeks ago I was working on my gratitude stuff and I was out on the patio and the sun was just coming up and there was birds tweeting, and man, I just had this thought of like, I'm not in control here. Like no matter what I do, the world's going to continue turning. And it just, I'm not saying that I'm still letting go or have achieved any kind of enlightenment, but I was just like, my efforts to control all this just really don't. It's just crazy.
And that's the key there, Brian. Stop the control. So it didn't say stop control. Stop trying.
Stop trying. Yeah.
Control. You're just trying to control.
You're just trying to control. Yeah. Yeah.
Let go of fixed plans doesn't mean you don't have plans.
Yeah.
But let go of the expectations, the rigidness that we get sometimes of forcing that plan.
That premeditated resentment.
Yes. And concepts too, not only plans, but our ideas behind the plans is the way I see that.
Hmm.
And when we let go, our life will govern itself. That happens every time that I step out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really applicable. We don't have to reach for this one. This one's right plain black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. We're done. See you guys next week.
And the rest of this, he's really just explaining what he means in the first stanza, right, Oscar?
Yeah, that's beautiful, Brian. And so many times we make the mistakes by in our heads we think we live our lives, which is crazy. We don't live our lives. We are our lives. I start my day. It's crazy. The day starts itself, and I'm in it, and actually it goes through me, and it just happens. But it's not me ending the day or starting the day or living my life. It's what we are. That's it.
That's that learning to be, isn't it, Oscar? I was meditating this morning, and I've been doing a lot of work, much more than I like. I hope it slows down next month. And I've noticed that my meditation time, if I want to be serene, I'm having to increase the time I meditate. And it's taking me much longer to get to that place in meditation, so to speak, where I'm not following my thoughts out, that I'm having some time of just sitting in meditation. I think most people would know what I mean by that if they meditate. Just being there, just sitting, just being, instead of, 10 minutes later, I've been off, doing something. And, wait a minute. And I'm back, And it was into the second, almost, I got glimpses of that this morning at like 28 minutes. So I did an extra 30 minutes and started to get more of that. What I'm saying is that trying to control was there the whole time, because I was thinking about the things I needed to do. Oh, I got to do this way, and all the imagination stuff that goes with that. But it was all back to this ego control. I got to make this thing I'm working on successful. Even though there's been no knots in the stomach or none of that kind of stuff. I've never had that on a startup before I've never started a business in this far into recovery either. So, but it's great not to have all that. But still, I'm noticing that it is pulling me. I can't say it's not affecting me, because it is. I can see it in meditation that it's affecting me. So I'm having to do a little more work to, I guess, counteract that. I don't know the right way to really phrase that, but it's work. In other words, it is work not to control in our everyday life. Okay, let's move on to that next stanza. We'll just read these next few and just talk on them because I think they're just descriptions of how to let go of those fixed plans and concepts and let the world govern itself. The more prohibitions you have, the less virtuous people will be. The more weapons you have, the less secure people will be. See, the more control we put, the more we govern, we don't allow our lives to govern themselves, which comes from when we take the control away. I think it comes from our natural condition, which is to allow compassion to run our lives, because it is the Tao Te Ching, day being virtue. The more subsidies you have, the less self-reliant people will be. Therefore, the master says, I let go of the law. My goodness, let go of the law, not double down on the law, make more laws. He lets go of the law and the people become honest. I let go of economics and the people become prosperous. And that's the opposite that I see. Drew?
Yeah, just thinking about that middle section, and how it relates to recovery for me. The more prohibitions you have, the less virtuous people will be. I had to think about that for a minute, like how it might relate to, directly to recovery. But, the one thing I thought of is when I was trying to place rules on when I could and could not use, whatever substance it was. I will only use it, on the weekends with friends, never by myself, or, okay, by myself, but only, after a certain time or after I've done these things, or after work is over. Well, only, during these events, just making all these rules for when it was okay for me to use something. I never followed those rules. Those, I broke my own rules as soon as I set them, and I wasn't honest about it. I wasn't, honest about other things in my life as well. So, giving up those rules, just, the more prohibitions you have. Well, I had a lot of prohibitions, when it wasn't acceptable to use something. So, when I gave up all of those rules and just, gave myself one rule, which is, no, we're not going to do that anymore. That's when I became virtuous sounds a little pompous to me, but became a little more virtuous when I gave up all those rules. And the more weapons you have, the less secure people will be. My use was definitely a weapon. It was something I used to fight whatever I was feeling that I didn't want to feel, or whatever I was thinking that I didn't want to think. That was definitely a weapon. And, the more I used it, definitely the less secure I felt. That's a good way to put it. And once I gave it up, definitely regained that security that I thought that it was giving me, but it really wasn't. And, the more subsidies you have, the less self-reliant people will be, relying on using a substance to moderate or control my thoughts or feelings or emotions. I could see that as being a form of a subsidy, something that I'm using to subsidize my life. And the less I use of it, the more self-reliant I am. I'm not relying on an outside, something outside of myself, something that's not within myself. That's kind of what I take the subsidy to be, is, a substance is, and I have no idea if substance and subsidy, they have the same prefix. I might have to look into that to see how related those two are. But, no, the less I can rely on something outside of myself, obviously, the more self-reliant I am. So, yeah, I've never looked at this middle part that directly in terms of recovery, but I definitely think it works.
Thank you, Drew, for roping us back in. My mind went to politics immediately, so I
Mhm.
lost. I wasn't getting anything out of that. Thank you. You know, for me too, all of the rules. If I'm just if I'm just concerned about staying sober in this very moment, what do I need? Is there very much my issues usually happen when I'm off in the future somewhere. What am I going to do about this? What about this? And I'm not right where my feet are. And it says less virtuous, Drew, not virtuous. So it's a degree of virtue. So it'd be more virtuous, and there's in the 46th verse, there's no greater illusion than fear, no greater wrong than preparing to defend yourself, no greater misfortune than having an enemy. That relates here too, I think. The things we think externally will bring about what we want to impose, what we think is best, never works. And it may be a good motive too. Let's say, for me personally, let's bring it back to us in our experience. Like you said, Drew, anything I'm looking external is not going to produce recovery in my life. All of those are externals that are being imposed, trying to bring about a good cause. Kind of like I've always heard, the road to hell paved with good intentions, right? And in my recovery, it was a lot the same, all the self-help stuff I tried, all of the different things that did not include surrender. And surrender opened that door within for those things that were already there that I needed. No outside source of any kind was able to do that for me. And the way I tapped that was willing to be helpful to others. That's how I tapped that surrender. That's how I stepped out of the way. Yeah. Therefore, the master says, I let go of the law and the people become honest. I let go of the economics and the people become prosperous. The exact opposite, right? I let go of my business and my business prospers. I let go of controlling my children. Not to say I don't have God, not to say that I'm wouldn't be a responsible father and those things, but I let go of the control in a way that I'm in fear of every decision, everything they do. You know what? That reminds me of the story of Job. That's kind of an interesting story, and it very much relates to recovery. It's probably the oldest story in the Bible, they say. And what Job did, I'll take a couple of minutes and explain it because it's very applicable. And I won't read anything, I'll just explain it. Job gave sacrifices in case his children sinned. He was full of fear. That's what he was doing. And anyway, he had a lot of bad things happen to him after that. How that all happened, I'm not going to. I'm more concerned with how he got relief. And it clearly states that Job was delivered when he prayed for his friends. He got out of himself, stopped praying for himself, stopped thinking about himself. And he was delivered when he let go, basically, of concern for himself. There's a lot more to the story, but that's the essence in what I would apply to my recovery. And this is a lot the same way. We have to get out of the way in all these things. My ex-wife did not like my kind of music. So we'd get in the car and she'd want to listen to something that I didn't like. And at first, I fought that. And I said, I'm going to turn the station to what she likes when we get in the car. And I'm not going to slowly ask if I can live. None of that stuff, right? That sounds so childish, me talking about it. And you know what? We had a more pleasant ride than we did when I was able to do exactly what I wanted to do. It's odd how that is, right? Oscar?
Yeah, we come back to the letting go of ego, right? The letting
Yes.
go of self. The letting go of self. And when we let go of self, we enter the world of the spirit. And when we enter the world of the spirit, we are invulnerable. So we don't need any defenses. So our invulnerability lies in our non-defense or no defense or defenselessness. Yeah. That's really a miracle, right?
Yes.
That's really a miracle. So we let go of self, and then we don't have to defend the self because there is no self, or we are letting it go. And of course, it's in the work. It's not. You get there. It's not. There's no. When you head for the north, you will not never arrive at the north, right? But you will be heading to the north. That's the work. And in this work, we let go of self. And in the letting go of self, we come home. Thanks.
You know, Oscar, what we realize too, if we stay at it long enough, that there is nothing to defend against. That's the whole point. Oscar, when you were a kid in the Netherlands, well, at our Thanksgiving time, it was all about turkeys. Okay, turkeys were the pilgrims and all those things. But I know you guys didn't have that, but as kids, they would have us put our hand on a piece of paper and draw our hand out and make a turkey out of it because it would look kind of like a turkey, like a turkey. So I'm working, well, not at the moment, but I have an idea for, and we've wrote some on it, to have two turkeys in the barnyard talking about dual and non-dual thinking. Okay. And as they discuss this, the two turkeys with every page become more and more like two hands of the same body as they realize the oneness of everything. And that's what we're talking about. We think that what we think's the enemy is different from us, when in reality, they're two hands of the same body. Yeah. Because all of this is dividing, Our plans divide. Prohibitions divide. Do this, don't do that. Weapons divide. The law divides. Governing economics divides because you're forcing different rules, and which divides. And religion, I think religion's the training wheels for spirituality. But I recall all religious ideas that I know of had division in them. Drew?
Yeah, just the talking about division and dualistic thinking, and the two hands are part of the same body; they're not separate from each other. A phrase in Buddhism that's stuck with me for a while, and that kind of comes to my mind more and more often, is that the happiness and suffering of others is not different from the happiness and suffering from ourselves. So, other people's happiness, it's not a zero-sum game. The happier someone is doesn't mean that I suffer more, and the happier I am doesn't mean that others suffer more. The more I can help others be happy, the more happiness that brings to me. The more suffering I bring to others, the more suffering that brings to me. And then on the flip side, I know that the happier I am, and truly happy, not selfish happy, but the more I can be present and tranquil and accepting and flexible and open, and the true marks of happiness for me, the more I can embody that, I know that the people around me become happier. And at the same time, the more, whenever I'm caught in some suffering, especially the self-imposed kind, I know from experience that makes others around me suffer more. So, when I can focus on bringing happiness to others and bringing happiness to myself, if I just focus on, making sure others are happy, that's kind of a form of control. That's sliding into, being a martyr sometimes. The more I can bring happiness to others and myself, which is a virtuous cycle, the better it is for everybody, and the less suffering I can bring to others and the less suffering I can bring to myself. Again, the better it is for everybody. So yeah, that's the two hands, being from the same body. That's what that brought to mind for me.
Thank you, Drew. Then he ends it with, I'll let go of all desire for the common good, and the good becomes common as grass. In other words, if he steps out of the way and really more allows, I think, like that phrase from Psalms, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know, be still, be. It's that is the process, isn't it? Yeah. If we sit with that long enough, we can just go to being, not have to know. I think not even be concerned with how it works. That's how I'd look at the be still and know that I am God, would be how is this working? What, I could relate it to that. Then the understanding of all of this too, on top of that. And then just all the way back to just being, stepping out of the way, allowing, all those words we can use. That is much harder work for me than jumping in there and trying to fix it myself. I love to do that. Make my punch list, and this is how we do it, step by step by step.
This is the right way to do it.
Yes. Get them into my task management system, send them an invite to Asana, which is what I use. Now we're going to do a whole section for this and then do all the little things, Then I realized, was this really any of my business? Why am I concerned about this? Or in Zen, what I learned to ask is, who is concerned about this? You ask those who questions. Who is sitting? Who is thinking? Who is upset? Who is concerned about their business? Is it really you that's concerned about your business, or is it your fear that's concerned about your business? That's a rabbit hole we could go down for hours. But that who question really, really helps me. All this does. Oscar?
Yeah, when we do the who question, the who question is in the self-inquiry. Who's asking the questions?
Yes.
Who's asking the questions? So who's asking who? And then we discover that the ego we are so desperately want to let go of doesn't exist. It's not there. It's not an entity. It's just thoughts. It's thoughts and assumptions and desire.
Fear.
Yeah. But it's nothing. And that's insane.
But just like the Course in Miracles, Oscar, you mentioned before, they look at this whole world as an illusion.
Yeah.
They call it the classroom.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy all of that, but I do see it, well, like I read a while ago, the greatest illusion is fear. All of these are elements of fear that we're talking about.
Yeah, so many times I experienced fear during my life, and then after a while it's gone. So it must be an illusion because it disappears as easy as it comes. So what is permanent and what is timeless and what is here forever, that must be truth. And that is something we can't see with our eyes or with our senses. but it's here and we can experience it because we are it. And then I recognized in that Course in Miracles, really, for me, it was really a revelation how it describes that it's all an illusion. Because I always thought this as a child. I thought that it's a dream. We are living in a dream. Everything disappears. We are here at the moment. Everything disappears. That's the present moment, right? It comes and goes in one moment, in one thing, in one, even not in a moment, because there's no time. I can really go wild on this. Thanks.
They call it a kalpa. I think in Buddhism is 1/60,000th of a second. It's how they say a moment is. So, and sometimes we can get, oh, well, by the time I talk about it, it's already gone. And then you're all up here swirling around.
Yeah, but then you're still in time as fast as it goes. I mean, there is always time because my perception of you here or in real life always comes in later than you give it. So there's always time, but there must be timelessness in it, right? Where everything goes through.
And I think the important thing with that is not to figure the thing out or try to figure it out, because I can't. The important thing is for me is to ask the question, how can I be helpful in this moment? And then keep doing that over and over. And it's not something you've got to work at. It's an intention. You can open your heart to it. You can just, and it helped me at first to put sticky notes everywhere. How can I be helpful in this moment? How can I, in the car, in front of my computer, just everywhere, to where I could, I could really saturate myself in that question. Okay, I'm riding down the road. How can I be helpful right now? Oh, I'm riding up on that guy's behind me. Maybe I should back off a little bit. Oh, the person ran up behind me. Instead of slamming on my brakes like I used to do, get off my ass, I said, oh, okay. They may not be aware they're doing that. I'm not going to get upset about it. It's not going to change anything. That's how I can be helpful, right? That's how I can be helpful right now. At first it was like that, right? And with time, that got easier and easier, to where now I do think about it sometimes when somebody rides up really close. But more times it's happening that I don't even think about it, and I especially don't ride up on people now like I used to. If somebody pulled out in front of me, like they pulled out in front of Buddy. No, they didn't. They just pulled out. They would have pulled out in front of any car that was there. They didn't do that to me. Instead of, I used that. My car now has the cruise where it sets the cars. Used to, I'd run it up to one and just close. I said, or take it off, and just push them.
Crashed them.
Yes, I'll leave it on the 3 back, and just say, okay, I'll just stay here. I'm not going to, do anything aggressive or I'm not going to change my behavior in some way because I don't like the way what they're doing. It's me thinking the turkeys are 2 different turkeys. I think it was the second Matrix movie. It had the twins, the albino twins, and one picked the other one up, and one said, we are getting aggravated. And the other one said, yes, we are. And I'm like, yeah, I can. I kind of use that sometimes when the car rides up behind me super close. I'm really riding close to me, aren't I? Just laugh about it, and that really helps. Or do this. Just smile at them in the rearview mirror, and they can't see me. I mean, this is not something for them. It's for me, that shit-eating grin, and just do it. And it just softens me when I smile. I don't understand. Try it sometime. Or just sometimes you by yourself and just smile out of the blue and see if it does not change, you in some way. It does me every time. Letting go of all desire eventually, hopefully, or as much as we can. It's a practice, right? And the thing is, We only have to let go in this moment. We don't have to let go forever. Just this moment. Like the film strip. Oscar, you reminded me of that. You know, the old film strip, it was a lot of static pictures, you know, a lot of individual pictures that were put together to make the film strip. Maybe our moment is a lot like that. You know, we've got all those moments put together that make up our life, make up time, and they're all individual moments, like individual slides in the film strip, individual images. Any closing comments? Well, thank y'all for a good conversation. Yep. And if I don't talk to you guys, I hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.